as the revenue grew, it just made common sense, I think, to share that with the people involved. And a big part of this whole enterprise, obviously, the main part of the enterprise are the players involved.
Brian Fisher for Sports Illustrated, thrilled to go one-on-one with Iowa football head coach Kirk Ferentz. Kirk, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be with you, Brian.
Absolute 27th season there in Iowa City. Have you had time to reflect at all in terms of what it means to be the longest tenured head coach in FBS?
Not really. I mean, it just seems like it just happened. And probably the most interesting part, like, I have no idea. I can't explain how it did happen. The ironic part is, like, I never had the dream or goal or ambition of being a head coach. That was never on my list. So it just kind of happened organically, back 20 plus years ago. And I really haven't thought much about it. Like, it's kind of like doing anything, when you're trying to get something done. It's just the next step, one foot in front of the other. And um, as a head coach, you have to look down the road a little bit, and you have to have, some idea of what you're thinking over 3 to 5 years. But for the most part, it's just, what's the next challenge here in this next block of time? What do we need to get done?
What does being the dean of Big Ten coaches mean in some of those coaches meetings? Does that make you sit at the head of the table? Like, what is that like?
Yeah, AJ Eads wrote me in to be. I finally had to be like the chair coach last year, and somehow for 20 plus years I evaded that role. But they nailed me down last year. Luckily, I didn't really have to do much because I don't know all the parliamentary order deal. But yeah, so no, and dean's kind of a funny term. It's an academic term. I always think of the movie Animal House when I hear dean. So I'm not sure that's a good thing either. But yeah, I've just been around a while.
How have those like coaches meetings that you go to every spring and every summer, like how have those changed over the years? And what have you noticed about some of the guys that have come into the conference nowadays?
We've always had good coaches in our conference, at least since my arrival here in '99. And, back then we did them in Florida for a while. Then we moved to Chicago. And then more recently, I guess they were in Arizona. I didn't go to those meetings, quite frankly. They weren't mandated. And now we've been in California the last 2 years. But they've changed a lot. I mean, you're always worried about what are the current events in the game. But I think, as all of us know, this is a very different time in college football history, at least since my association with it. And, so to me, the last 2 years have been really good. They've been very, very informative. There's a lot of change going on, a lot of unknowns. So it's a chance for all of us to maybe learn a little bit in a group setting, share some ideas. And Commissioner Petitti's been just outstanding. His leadership's been just really front and center, very direct, and he's a guy that really likes to ask questions. He's a great listener. So to me, the meetings the last 2 years have really been very informative and very helpful. I think just to see the landscape a little bit better. And typically, none of us can ever agree on. You got 18 people in the room. It used to be 10 at one point, 11 since I got back here, and you can never get everybody to agree 100% on everything. But I think it just gives you good exposure to what's going on from different perspectives.
You mentioned those changes. I mean, does that make you more excited to show up to work, less excited? I mean, does it fire you up? How have you kind of come to grips with all the changes in college football that have really happened just in the last couple of years?
Yeah, our local medias at times ask me, does it ever get old? Does it ever get and I think even in normal times, if you're paying attention in life, like, there's always something every day that pops up that's going to make you reflect and think a little bit. When I was in the NFL, it was usually football centric, if you will. I'd see something on film that, boy, as much film as I've seen, it's like never. I'm not sure I've ever seen that situation or scenario. Now my scope's a little bit broader, and it's the same thing if you look at a broader scope. And then certainly, again, the last couple of years, as you've alluded to, this is unprecedented, and quite frankly, not all of it's been great. But the good news is, I think at least we're taking aggressive steps to try to contain things a little bit and create some type of framework. Because the last couple of years we've operated roughly without any framework to speak of, at least nothing meaningful. And to me, that was not good. Not to sound like the old guy in the room, but it wasn't good for the future of the game. And hopefully, we're taking some steps now where maybe we can get it back to where it's going to be workable for everybody.
I mean, how did you navigate that, especially with your staff and in dealing with all those changes that have really kind of come fast and furious at you?
Yeah, part of it is twofold. I mean, it's you look at it. A lot of it doesn't make sense. A lot of it you can't make it make sense. And so on that level, you just have to me, it's been patience and hope that maybe somebody is going to, get this thing reined under control a little bit. Getting on the wrong end of a lawsuit, major lawsuit, probably helped, with some expediency of this whole thing. But however we got here, at least now there's an attempt maybe to create a structure that's going to be fair for everybody involved. And that's an ongoing process too. But so on one hand, you've got to have some patience, realizing that hopefully things will get somehow back to a workable point. And then on the short term, you just have to deal with it on a day to day. And I think ultimately do what you feel is best for your program or what fits your program. And it's probably a different story. We've got 18 teams in our conference, and we probably all have a different vantage point on that and what the best way to navigate it is. So, you just, it's like anything, you just try to deal with the short term, but also hope that over time, the powers that be will get things under control a little bit.
If you had told yourself back in '99 when you're starting out that the school is going to be cutting checks to your players when you open fall camp, I mean, would you have believed that? Would it have shocked you? Would it, or is that just kind of where you kind of thought everything was going to be heading eventually?
Yeah, probably not. Maybe a little bit after that. One thing that seemed to make sense was, maybe putting incentives in scholarships if possible, and rewarding players for some tangible results like graduation, which nobody's talked about in the last 2 years. Maybe 3 years, but anyway, just how the landscape's changed. But maybe give them some targets so when they do leave school with a degree and completion of their career, they would have a little bit of a nest egg, that type of deal. And that those ideas got floated about 20 plus years ago, and that made sense to me. The thing that's obviously changed in college football is just the revenue explosion. I spent 6 years in the NFL, and I remember in the '90s wondering, like, what point is this going to end? When's the ceiling going to take place monetarily? And as we know, nothing is, it just keeps accelerating. And I'm pretty sure that's the world we live in. There's a real thirst and appetite for football, pro and college. And then the TV expansion of the TV contracts is just, it's out of control, or out of sight, I should say, not out of control. And that's why teams in the Big Ten are playing on the West Coast and against member schools. The concept of tradition and geography have kind of been put on the other side of the ledger. But all that being said, as the revenue grew, it just made common sense, I think, to share that with the people involved. And a big part of this whole enterprise, obviously, the main part of the enterprise, are the players involved.
I mean, how much were you kind of thinking too in terms of restructuring your own staff, restructuring how you went about things? I know you guys just hired Scott Pioli to help out and assist you guys, another NFL connection from back in the day. How much has that been top of mind for you, trying to deal with, wrap your head around all these changes?
Yeah, a little bit of a clarification. I'm only smiling because it's almost funny. Scott actually worked with us last year as well, and I've known Scott since 1993. Just tremendous human being. First of all, a lot of wisdom and certainly a lot of experience, especially as it pertains to these topics. So he's been a great resource for us. But that's basically what he is. He's on a retainer. Doesn't have an office here. He'll show up on occasion and has obviously been in contact with us virtually and on the phone. But just he's basically an advisor for us as we moved into this new era. And but right along with that, Tara Barnes, who was our head of recruiting years ago, is now our general manager. And if you'd asked me 5 years ago about, do we need a general manager, I would have laughed. And somebody asked me yesterday about, what's a general manager actually do? And really the easiest way I can answer is all this stuff I don't want to do and don't have the time to do. So he's kind of my fountain of youth. If anything, I'll be able to, maybe coach a little bit longer because he's handling a lot of the stuff that I'm not sure I'd want to be taking my time with right now. But yeah, to your point, like that's a new deal and everybody's going that direction for good reason. The football part itself really hasn't changed in my mind. We still put 11 guys on the field, and coaching is still coaching. But if all you got to do is go in our staff room now, and we got guys sitting around the table, then we've got more people around the edge of the room, and that's where the growth has been. If you told me 15 years ago we're going to have a social media department, I had no idea what you're talking about, nor any idea why you'd need one. But those are the things that are changing. All those things around the perimeter, that you have to do and have to be staying current with, because that is current with the time. So that part of the game's changed, and then trying to coordinate all that and keep everybody functioning as a unified team. Those are new challenges, and they're enjoyable.
Mention how long you're going to coach. Does it get annoying getting asked that seemingly every year?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, and this one's an easy one because I'll turn 70 here in August. So we're almost proactive on the topic now, because you figure certainly in recruiting, people are using that against us, and maybe other areas too. But my answer on the recruiting front is this: if you'd tried to stake the probability of me being in coaching 5 years from now, both in 2000 or now, I would suggest the odds are a lot better now than they were in 2000. We were 2-18 our first 20 games, so that's another ironic twist of this whole thing. And in today's world, probably would have been fired midseason year two, and fortunately that didn't happen, and we're still sitting here 25 years later, 26 years later. But yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, it's just part of it. And I can't really answer the question other than I feel great, and this is what I like doing, and I don't have a real good reason to stop right now.
I mean, when Nick Saban retires, when Tony Bennett retires, when Jay Wright retires, do you kind of raise an eyebrow when some of those retirements happen, or does it cause you to reflect kind of on your own path and where you're going from here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I two things. I like Nick lives in a different world than I do, and we coach together in Cleveland. I know him, and nothing but total admiration and respect for what he's done his entire career. He's had a tremendous career as a coach, and obviously he's got it sounds like a great new career on TV as well. So happy for him. I think probably the just the mode of operation is probably a little different there than it is here. So and it probably fits him well, and this fits me well. So it's funny how that works out sometimes. Jay Wright, I have a tremendous respect for him. I don't know the basketball world, but boy, I just loved watching his teams compete, and he always seemed to be a guy who's spot on with all of his messaging. As a distant long distance fan of his, and same thing with Tony Bennett. And I'm old enough to remember when his dad coached up at Wisconsin, and he had a lot of respect for him too. He did they were a program that wasn't doing real well, and then he really did a great job building that, and really admired the work that Tony did down at Virginia. So yeah, so when that happens, and I'm guessing he and I probably live in a more parallel world than me and Nick, and so yeah, it does. But it kind of gets down to everybody makes decisions for themselves, and the way he perceives the world or I perceive the world may be entirely different, and so you just kind of make decisions based on what's best for you, and I think that's probably the path of life. But yeah, to say I didn't notice it, yeah, that'd be lying. I certainly noticed, and was curious about what kind of comments he made in regards to his decision.
Well, the guy that hired you in Cleveland is now one of your peers at the college level. Could you have ever imagined Bill Belichick being a college head coach?
I mean, yes and no. Bill is a football purist. Coach Belichick's just great. He's a great human being. First of all, thoroughly enjoyed my 3 years there, and I've been really fortunate in my career. I've worked for three head coaches, I guess, and all three were two of them are Hall of Famers, and the other one, to me, could be or should be Ted Marchibroda. All three very different, but they were all just really great people to work with and learn from. And I'm appreciative of all three for the opportunities they gave me. And Coach Belichick, now, granted, like 8 guys turned the job down before he got to me on the interview list, but nonetheless, he gave me an opportunity. I left the University of Maine as a head coach to go there. That took guts on his part, and I'm extremely appreciative for that opportunity. Thoroughly enjoyed working with him, and to answer your question directly, like yeah, I probably didn't envision him because he was a career lifer in the NFL, but he's also a career football coach and a teacher. I think that'll translate really well to the college level. And he's got Mike Lombardi with him, who's handling a lot of the things that maybe, again, when you're just thinking about coaching, things you don't want to maybe have to deal with in a prominent way. So he's got a great support staff there, and my guess is he'll do a tremendous job.
I mean, are you able to actually like do more coaching nowadays because you do have other people around that can handle some of those off the field issues? I mean, are you actually coaching more than you were, say when you started in '99?
Yeah, not so much 99, but I'll go back to when I went to Maine. That would have been 1990, and it was an FCS or FCS, I guess. Back then it was one double A, and budget was tough. Kevin White is the gentleman that hired me. Again, talk about a guy who took a leap of faith, and to meet him, Kevin, and work with Kevin was just it was a real treat. Um, but the bottom line, I called our director of ops here about a month later and just said they should have hired you, not me, because 85%, maybe 90% of my time was, trying to do ops works and fundraising, that type of thing, and maybe 10% on football. So to go to the NFL, I was like a born again football coach. In the NFL, it's strictly football. There's no graduation. You're not in charge of players' development, that type of thing. It was just strictly football. And then coming here, um, college football is different because we are involved with our players, their lives, academically, their development, those types of things. But I've always enjoyed that part of the game. But you do get to coach football, and then to the point, we have a good administrator, a good supportive staff here. So I am a lot of my time goes towards the football aspect, and that's still what I love, that and working with young people. So, yeah, I think I feel very fortunate to be at this level where you do have a really good support staff around you.
I mean, a lot of your ex-players always speak to the culture there at Iowa, the culture that you've developed. Is that harder to kind of instill, especially given that some of your transfer portal players, might only be there for a couple of months?
Yeah, I think you learn lessons as you go, and I think the whole key is just it's about finding, and that's what recruiting should be anyway. And if you're in the job market, I mean, hopefully that's what you're looking for, not just taking a job, but taking the right job for you. And it's kind of like Iowa. I mean, I came back here in '99 mainly because the 9 years I was here as an assistant were nine of the greatest years of my life. And my wife felt the same way. It was a great place for us to start our family. Loved the football part of it. We had a great staff of guys. Coach Fry was great to work with, and just a very supportive community. So it's kind of a no brainer to come back here. And my point there is like, it's all about finding a mesh that's good for you. For me, I've never had a dream job, but if there was one, this is probably the only job I would have come back to in college. It was the only one I would have been interested in, and it was twofold: the football part of it, plus the chance to have a good, stable environment for our family. It was a young family at that time. And shifting back to what you're asking, I think it's the same way in recruiting. If you get the right guys that think this is a good deal and they're appreciative for the opportunity, things seem to work well. And it's pretty easy to coach a guy like Sam Laporta. Even though we almost blew it, we didn't recruit him early, and then we came late, and his mom didn't want to hear of it, and then we finally got her to at least consider it, and the family did, and then Sam came here. But yeah, when you got great guys to work with, that's the whole key. And so yeah, if we're recruiting the right guys, then yeah, we tend to have a pretty good environment, and things go pretty well. And but I think that's a big part of recruiting is trying to figure out, okay, is this guy going to project well in our program? Will he thrive here? Will he enjoy it? And you're not 100% right all the time, but at least we've been pretty lucky in not having a lot of guys transfer out. Last couple of years, we've done a pretty good job there, and even in the portal, we probably look at it a little bit differently than maybe some other people do, and but it's worked for us. So that's kind of how our approach is.
You mentioned your time there as an assistant before you took the head coaching jobs. I mean, your 1985 staff there under Hayden. I think there was 10 FBS or FCS head coaches that eventually got produced either on the team or on that coaching staff. What was it about like that era for you that kind of shaped your way of thinking as a head coach?
It's crazy. I got here in 1980. I was a GA at Pitt. That was my first big time football experience, and it was Coach Sherrill. We had three first rounders. We had I think 12 guys drafted that year, and that's not including Dan Marino was a sophomore, Jimbo Covert was a sophomore. It was just a phenomenally talented team. The staff wasn't really cohesive or connected, quite frankly, but the team was just so talented. Finished second in the country, and so I'm a new guy saying, okay, I get the idea. Just get a bunch of good players, and staff doesn't really have to be on the same page. And came out here, it was just the converse of that. In 1981, we ended up having the first winning season in 19 years. Went to the Rose Bowl, won the Big Ten. We had Andre Tippett, probably the best way to illustrate the team. Andre Tippett, Hall of Fame, NFL college Hall of Fame player. He's one of our outside backers. The other guy's a guy named Brad Webb. Andre, obviously, his credentials speak for themselves. Brad Webb was a walk-on here who became a captain, better noted for going to law school and runs a car dealership in Chicago now. very successful, but he was about my size. Fortunately, he's a little faster than I am. So, but that was like our team. We got a guy over here who's could have fit in with that Pitt group, and Brad would have been third team at Pitt. But we made it work, and the coaching staff was extremely cohesive here. And to your point, a lot of the guys on the staff went on and had success in their careers. Coach Fry has to get a lot of credit. Not one guy had a resume, myself included. I was 25 years old, had 1 year in college experience, GA at Pitt for 1 year with Coach Moore. And Coach Moore talked to me and interviewed me, and next thing you know, I had the job. But I think that gives you a little window into Coach Fry. Every guy on our staff had a story, yet we were all really closely tied to each other. We were all motivated for the same thing. There's nobody jockeying for position, trying to be the next guy or all that stuff. Everybody's just coaching to coach. And two of the guys always make a point. Two guys that never got a head coaching opportunity that were two of the to me stabilizers on the staff. Bill Brazier was Coach Fry's longtime defensive coordinator, and then Carl Jackson on the offensive side was our running back coach, and he actually mentored me when I got here. Running back coaches and line coaches usually work in harmony, and so Carl took me under his wing, and then fortunately we were able to get Carl back when I came back in '99. He came back for 8 or 9 years before retiring, but just we just had a really quality staff of guys and just a lot of good players to work with through the years.
What was the best piece of advice you ever got?
From whom?
Anybody. I think that's the great thing about coaching. You can get it from your
Yeah,
players, you can get it from your assistants, from Hayden Fry. What might be the
I'll
best?
go back to my wedding day. My uncle said to me, "You got to, just remember this. You got to work at it." Talking to my wife and I had no idea what the hell he was talking about, but pretty much pertains to everything. Wedding day, everybody's happy, and you're madly in love, all that stuff. And again, I had no idea what he's talking about. But in anything you do that involves relationships and close quarters, which football certainly does, obviously marriage does, you've got to work at it. And there's no easy path. Tell our players all the time what we're trying to do is really hard to do, and to do it well, it's not for everybody. So you do have to work at it, and everybody's looking for quicker ways, easier ways. Everybody's got an idea on that stuff. But at the end of the day, either you're in the weight room, the weight moves, or it doesn't. If you're running a 40-yard dash, you get from this point to that point. So at some point, it's about doing the work that's necessary to make all those things happen. And as simple as that sounds, I just think as a rule right now, a lot of people have kind of forgotten that, and they're all looking for the easier way and quicker way, or if I go train with this guy for 3 days, I'll be that guy. A common fad right now is every NFL prospect leaves here as fast as they can after the bowl game, and they go train in California or wherever it may be. And hey, I trained with Saquon Barkley. Well, we competed against him out there in Kinnick in 2019, and there ain't many Saquon Barkleys like he's Saquon Barkley. So yeah, it's nice you're training with him, but it's still about who you are and what you can do to maximize your abilities.
You get home and you're sitting there with your wife. What are you doing? Besides watching game film, is there something that Kirk Ferentz is doing besides watching game film at home?
Yeah, I try not to watch game film at home, and try not to take my work at home, although my wife would tell you differently. At least, you sometimes you get in the zone a little bit, especially in season. It's tough. And you're not home a lot in season. But if I'm home on Thursday night, which we are, I'm trying to, when I walk out of here and get my car, I try to leave it there. And hopefully by that point, even by Wednesday night, before I go to bed, I think, you got things pretty well settled in your mind. So I think, coaching in the NFL was really healthy for me in one regard, a lot of regards. But during that 6 years, I learned as hard as you work, you got to rest hard too. You've got to learn to compartmentalize some things, and learn, have that ability to try to, keep them over here, over there, so it doesn't bleed in. And I quit golfing for two reasons. Number one, I stunk, and then number two, with your time demands of your job, and then we're raising 5 kids. If you do have time, it's hard to justify being on a golf course. At least it was for me. So trying to divide your energy and time as much as you can. And it's just not realistic to think you're gonna have a lot of time in this job. But when you do have that time, you want to try to at least be civil and sociable and be interactive with the people you're with.
You're turning 70, and every time that there's a round birthday, I think everybody's like expecting big plans. Do we have any big plans for the 70th? I know it's kind of right before fall camp starts, but is there anything you got planned for that?
Yeah, I think it's actually our first or second day on the field, probably second day. So it's kind of how it's fallen the last couple of years, and not to be a birthdays are a lot bigger deal for the grandkids. Like we that's fun. We had a dual birthday party this past Sunday for one of our older grandkids, and then one of the younger ones. That was a lot of fun. But to watch kids' eyes light up and just when they open gifts, they don't even know what the hell they're doing, but they're tearing them up. They like that part certainly. Yeah. So for me, no, it's but there is probably a little bit of a hurdle there. 60 was a little bit of a hurdle, and now 70. I've got a couple of false hips, hip replacements a couple of years ago, and even that was a weird psychological thing because you take some time. I'd never really had much surgery in my life, and so it's the first time I'm under, and they put you under, and they do some mechanical stuff to you, and just weird to wake up knowing you've got something that's not yours in your body, and so that took a little bit of adjustment too. So hopefully this will be just as easy.
What still gets you fired up walking into the office about this year's team?
I just like our guys. I don't know how good we are right now, and we'll find that out this season. But I like the way the guys have approached things, and this goes back to January. We started getting together. Then we added guys, in the portal. A couple guys joined the team, and then a new group of guys, the incoming freshmen that weren't here early, joined us in June. So each step of the way, the team's changing, it's growing. Our teams tend to probably be a little bit more dynamic in their growth than some other places because a lot of the guys who recruit are maybe under the radar, that type of thing. And it's especially the guys in their first couple, 3 years, you really see a lot of dramatic change. So, every step's kind of fun. Every step's important. And it's just, it's enjoyable to watch the guys handle each phase. And this is the toughest, phase in terms of conditioning, cardio. We don't do much of that in the out of season because we're not playing. But right now we're ramping up for camp in the season. So, just watching how the guys handle that, and then just being interactive. And again, this team's got a good vibe. I think we've got really good leadership, probably surprisingly good, considering some of the guys we've lost over the last 2 years. But it's a good group of guys, and just anxious to see how it all pulls together here.
I think a lot of people are definitely anxious to see what the Hawkeyes do on the field. Kirk Ferentz, thanks for going one-on-one here with Sports Illustrated.
I appreciate it, Brian. Good to be with you.